gentlemen, and thanks for joining me today. So this is a final day of SDTS in Houston. How's the show been for you all so far? This is your first one and your first one.
Yep.
All right, Todd, you sit on the board with me. How's it been for you so far?
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, definitely coming back next year. That's all I can say. Yeah.
What's unique about the show, Matt, that you've been to before?
I would say it's quite an intimate atmosphere, and the audience is relevant. So anybody in that audience or the topic or on the stage, they are relevant to your business or to your network or what you're doing. So there's no disappointments when you talk to someone. So I've probably got more out of those 3 days than we've probably got in the last few months at work.
That's great. I'm glad I brought you here.
Yeah.
So that makes me feel good. And Todd, you're a board member with me, so we're biased.
Yeah, but it's still, Eric always does a great job, and I think even this year, the audience is both industry and surgeons. And if you notice, there's no surgeon here that has MD on their badge, because we're all equals. It's go out there and let's go present to everybody, and it's been, and I think the content has been outstanding, and the communication, the back and forth, the questions, the challenges. It's always fun and it's an entertaining meeting, and I really do think it's the best of its kind.
I do, I agree with that. So each of you have a technology that has an imaging modality to it as a driver for the most part. And with that, I firmly believe that as humans, we're a lot more than we presently are. And with images, there's a lot more there than you see, which is a data component. So with that in mind, how are you thinking about weaponizing your image in a digital data-centric world?
Yeah, thanks. I think one of the important things that we like to do at Innovis is we take as you say, the data of the image, but then we put that next to some objective data as well, which is something that we do slightly differently to some of the other imaging platforms. So the weaponization of that image is, as a surgeon, I'm looking at something I've just done. So I've just performed this procedure. I can go and send that. I can go and send that to some more senior surgeons to provide feedback to me. But not only can I see the image, but I can look at the objective data of what I was doing with my hands and my instruments, so that I can pair the two together. So that's for us how we look to weaponize the sort of the image data when it comes to driving a learning continuum.
Yeah, and what's the obvious below the image for you? So, and again, I would point that to you, Matt, next is, the image itself is obvious, but what are the subset data value in that image that we might not have realized if we just saw that image and left it there?
So I think in our business, it's got a direct correlation because we're an endoscopy business. So you have to have the image to see what you're doing. And for us, we look at image in two ways. There's the actual quality of the image, and then there's the light intensity that goes with it. So we're looking into the from gastroscopies or colonoscopies. Can you see the whole space? And then can you really focus on that bit of anatomy that you have to diagnose or you have to interpret? We have to do that through a single-use platform as well. So we can't rely on lots and lots of lenses. It's got to be a chip-on-tip technology bringing it forward. So we look at developing that in two ways. Firstly, light intensity is important for us. Can you see what you're doing for the first use cases, which gives confidence in adoption? And then it's about making that image as sharp as possible or as complete as possible to eventually target the reusable business and see if there'll be that paradigm switch across. So we look at it in two ways, and we're making great strides with the light intensity part and the images coming there. The bit behind the scenes, which is more interesting, is you're capturing 20 minutes of video every time that you do a colonoscopy or a gastroscopy. And that's then learning what can you do with that video. So the image is the starting point. It gives you the clarity of the video. You capture the video, and then you have a whole sandbox of what you can do with that. Do we build data sets ourselves to start mining AI from or machine learning? Do we provide that to other people? Can we use that video to build it into outcomes? How do you make the endoscopy as safe as possible? So really the opportunity on the video is gigantic for us, but it's got to come from a sharp image and a light intensity as well. So that's how we're looking at it at the minute.
And this is exactly where your value prop lies with Active, right?
Hopefully. The best part, where the secret sauce is in a sense is traditional laparoscopic technology allows you to see red, green, blue, one color. The colors, that's great. That's a traditional view that everyone has. Fluorescent imaging, some others have that. And you can get that image anywhere. And great technology, great images. What Active brings is that unique image with sensor capabilities that we have with the intelligent light, what we do with Active with our laser speckle technology. And the three of those images together are what makes ActiveSight with the algorithm so special, because it's the most unique data set of images. It can't be done anywhere else because we're the only ones with ActiveSight. So to put the combination of the three together, then it goes to the cloud, annotated ground truth data, and then with the labeling that can be done of veins versus artery, vessel identification, critical structure identification, based on our perfusion data, plus the other information that we're getting from the tremendous partners that we have that are using their systems, allow us to have data-rich systems that allow us to continually give updated information in real time to our physicians.
Yeah, and I bring up the image and I bring up the data off of that because that's tending to be the long tail value that's happening everywhere right now. And with that, that's created an open architecture environment as we build our companies, more than ever. I mean, you and I have grown up in Medtech. We're about the same age, more than 3 decades in Medtech. You guys look too good to be that
I'm
long
only just
in
3 decades
Medtech.
alive, Joe. So.
Well, I'm glad you think I look good, Joe, so thank you, so that's great.
But you and I have grown up in that monolithic, it has to be built here.
Absolutely.
Let's not look outside the 4 walls. This is where it is. We should do it all best. And that could have been true, other than contract manufacturing, right? But now we're in this new frontier that, gosh, there's data, there's insights, there's AI, there's machine learning, all these other things that we have a product that comes out now, or we build a product that wants to then partner across the board. And so as CEOs, each of us depend on external partners almost as a final product outside of manufacturing. So how are you thinking about that, Todd? I'll start with you. Coming from old school with me, you've done a phenomenal job coming out of these multi-billion-dollar organizations as president and CEO previously, and now as a startup. How have you managed the culture in that team? And you've been an athlete your whole life as well, high-level athlete, so you're all about team. But how have you built that, maybe that you learned from the past but expanded on the future?
Well, I think you take what you learn. I love being part of the big companies. So while I'm so excited about where we are, I realize that when we did partner with smaller companies or companies our size, they became our R&D arm. So we didn't have to do the investment in that R&D because they had something that was completed, that was done, that was ready to go, that makes us better, that enhances us. This was a little unique in the sense that we have a technology that we worked on, and going through the FDA, our approval from the FDA, our 510K approval, is that it sits on these other systems, whether it's a Karl Storz, a Stryker, an Olympus, et cetera, et cetera. So in essence, I don't have to work with those companies to go into a hospital, which is really a great strategy. I can walk right up to a surgeon and put this in her hands, and if she wants to use it, she can use it. Attach it to the system that they use, make it seamless, et cetera. What's really good, though, coming from those companies, is I'm much happier partnering with them, communicating with those companies, sharing that we're not competing with you because I'm not a scope. My goal is we're going to take what you have and we're going to just make it better, or offer new things that you don't offer and you don't have to worry about it. Your secret sauce is your secret sauce, our secret sauce is ours, and together our superpowers can still win together, and it's just a better system to work together. And I would take that from my past experience. Ultimately, I think that's what they want. They may not tell you right away, but they ultimately like to know they can get better.
Mm-hmm. And you're building a culture now. You're a surgeon. You're a first-time CEO now. You've got a chance to build from scratch as well. So how do you think about this partnering, open architecture, permeable barrier in this health tech industry?
Yeah, and I think it's so important. And when we think about the open architecture, because we cross the chasm of hardware and software, so we're fully vertically integrated. But when we're building our software solutions particularly, we take what we call this scalable modular infrastructure approach. So we build all our tech in APIs and SDK frameworks. And it sort of comes back to the first question, which is when we're capturing all this video data, where's the value in it? Well, actually, the value in it is not just capturing just the Innovus video, but it's capturing the IQ video, it's capturing the active video. And the only way we're going to be able to really leverage that into something of true value to the patients is having an architecture, as you say, where it can all integrate with one another relatively seamlessly. And that comes down to you've got to build from the ground up with this scalable modular approach, where this SDK framework here allows me to just go and hook into something from active, and then it provides value back to active. And to your point, as a smaller business, you no longer have the $1 billion R&D budgets. Actually, we can become each other's R&D arms. So we're not having to go to the big guys and say, can we sort of get acquired by you and gobbled up early, and so that we can keep doing what we need to do. Actually, we support each other, but we have to make sure that the architecture that we're building allows that to happen, and that's really important.
And that drives your culture inside for those people who can have the internal-external collaboration as well.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's really important to feed through to your teams, because if they want to just protect, and especially if we're working with developers, they want to protect everything. They're very precious over it, which is quite right, because it's their baby. But if especially the senior leadership of the companies, if they are setting the tone to say, no guys, as senior leadership, we want to open this up to the rest of the industry because that's going to have a bigger impact, then that really relaxes them, allows them to do their best work.
And that you're still somewhat stealth, and although I don't like that word, you're managing and modulating your coming out party. So how are you doing that? You come from pretty large multinationals, and you've built this, and originally you were with Proximy, so you rode that, and then you went off to IQ as the CEO. So how has that influenced your leadership in an open architecture environment?
So I think I always come back to the narrative or the phrase, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do it. So just because you can build a product doesn't mean you should do. And we at IQ, every decision we take is with the customer in mind and the customer-centric approach to that. We sit here as 3 CEOs or anyone in this industry, we're probably doing it for the same reason, which is we want to touch people's lives for the better. We either want to make patients better, physicians better, or the health systems more positive. And that's the driver of what we do. So we look at it from a customer point of view to say, what does our customer need? And I agree with Todd's point, everyone has their secret sauce. And in our case, our secret sauce is our endoscope. But in endoscopy, it's multifactorial. You've got the scope, you've got the lighting, you've got the image, you've got the intensity, you've got energy systems, you've got things working through it. You can't do everything yourself, but the customer needs all of those to come together to adopt your product or get the best impact or output from your solution. And we look at it and say, well, we've got our secret sauce and we're passionate about that and we've kept it and we've protected it, but I have to have all these other complementary technologies as well to mean that I can transform the patient's life in the best way. And you then have to look and say, well, if we all did it ourselves, we're going to raise hundreds of millions of dollars. We're all going to raise lots of money. We're going to take lots of time, lots of effort to ultimately do it. Or we can get there faster by partnering with each other. So internally at IQE, we put all of that back to the customer, that we're doing things from a customer-centric point of view, and together we can be more powerful than doing it individually. Where that translates then is if you start partnering with other organizations and you become each other's route to market, you become each other's drivers, you then get innovation in the way that you work together, the way that you partner, the agreements between you, your licensing agreements, your revenue models. There's a whole new innovation in the actual commercial stream that you can drive from your organization where you don't have to own every single dollar. You can have a big percentage of that dollar. But it comes back to being customer-centric and making sure that you're partnering with all the technologies that your customer needs.
You bring up a really interesting point, and you and I over the last couple of days have chatted about this, is so many times we identify market share or market capability, and that seems to be a certain size pie. Yeah. But there's a much larger pie out there, especially with all the new technologies coming out. All 3 of you sitting here on this panel, that it's the obvious proximal pie. But how about that distal pie and where the industry is going? Because I think over the next 5 years, we can't even think about where the industry is going, regulatory agency aside. And so the opportunity is there for each of you to plug into a pie we don't even know exists yet. And that partnering as a leader, I think we're going to see more rev share. Would you agree with that, Todd?
I really do, because we talked about partnering, and my last answer was regarding some medical device companies. We're also partnering with the Microsofts and the NVIDIAs of the world, and they're known to take things to places that can go anywhere. I mean, in a great way. I mean, to continue to stretch the boundaries. And they want to get into hospitals and use our expertise, and we want to use their expertise of tech, which means the inferencing on the edge and all the data and the opportunities to just drive are immense. And then think about, then you have a platform. And is your platform something that, are you selling your platform to hospitals? Are you selling your platform to other services that sit on your platform? I mean, that's where the distal goes, and it can go anywhere, which offers up, we have to pace ourselves because it gets exciting to talk about. And at the end of the day, we still have to make sure that product A is great or no one cares about product B, C, and D. But we have to be thinking of B, C, and D, and we're talking D now. D's realistic, Joe. It's really realistic and it's exciting.
And so to that point, you've all got investors. So then you go to a board meeting, and Microsoft and NVIDIA is in your ear, and they're like, we can do this and this and this. And the investors are like, whoa, 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 whoa. We signed up in this round for you to do this, right? But no, don't do that, right? But wait a second, you see it, and they see you 3 times or 4 times a year, maybe more if you've got an active board, and they're all, no pun intended, and they're all busy elsewhere. So managing the board on this open architecture, when you come from a meeting like this, and you guys chat, and you're like, holy cow, and well, you and Nadine had an aha moment well before I did this morning, but I saw that overlap of complementary value. Do you find yourself sometimes frustrated going back to your investors, and they're like, well, we asked you to just go to B, and you're taking them to G already? Any input on that?
Yeah, I think so, and that's the dichotomy of our jobs, isn't it? You know, you're always told at the board meeting, focus, deliver what you said you deliver, but you've also got to think about the future. And I don't think, you know, and I think it comes back to something we've spoken about in the last few days, which is choosing the right investor for you, having that right mindset. And we're really blessed at IQ that we have a fantastic investor base who do challenge us to deliver the now, but also really think about the future. And I think where that comes in is, you know, in a journey of a medical device product, bringing it to market, you've got the journey to get it there. Then you've got the journey for adoption. So is it being used? And then you've got to stick. And you can't, if you don't stick, and if you don't get bigger, you might just commoditize your own market. And that's where it really comes in, that these approaches, once you have that right conversation about being sticky, making sure you're delivering value, not just being a one-hit wonder or 2 years there, that's when they really come in. So I think it's, you know, managing the board on that, it's really about the right time to have those strategic discussions. You always have to deliver your here and now because that's your focus, but it's having that opportunity to think further afield. And I think, as I come back to, when it comes to a product, you have to always drive value back into that product. Otherwise, the price will drop down, other people will come in, and it's not an attractive business to be.
And Elliot, you've got the world ahead of you because you're out of all of us sitting here, you probably have the least competitive space, so to speak, and a wide open space because that sims and training should be forefront of everything where Medtech's going, because the technology is becoming so expensive to actually sit in the cockpit of the fighter jet, if you will. And this was the analogy I use. I'm like, you can sit in a plane and learn to fly for $500 an hour in a Cirrus, or you can sit in a simulator for about $10 an hour, get good enough, and then go out there. So you're sitting in a catbird seat, in my opinion. So there's way too many opportunities ahead of you to not stay focused.
Yeah, absolutely. And focus is key. And I think there's a couple of things here. So I think I've used this term with you before. We practice patient urgency. So we're very urgent about the things that are right here in front of us. So these are the deliverables we must make, because ultimately we build trust with the board and the investors by actually delivering on the plan, and we're a profitable trading business, so that does help. But then this patience piece is, okay, there's an opportunity, there's another opportunity. You'll come out of this event here and there'll be like 7 different opportunities for you to go back and mull over. But we can be patient about those opportunities and not let them get in the way of the immediate deliverables, but not let them die. That's the really important piece, because I think if you start becoming closed off and too focused, that's when we stop innovating, and that's when we stop being open-minded enough to say, okay, there's a massive opportunity that we can have here by collaborating with these people. We didn't know about that opportunity 6 months ago, but can we put ourselves into the position where we have enough resource and scale to take advantage of that in the next 6 or 12 or 18 months? And I think that's the important piece. And the really important bit when it comes to the investors is just communicating really aggressively with them. And when I say aggressive, I mean lots and lots of high volume information to say to them, like, these are all the opportunities. We're still being very, very urgent about our key focus that we need to do, but this is where all these could go, and we'll keep you updated as we move along, and that seems to work for us anyway.
And board selection, as you were chatting, I'm thinking about board selection moving forward in MedTech. I'm hoping, and you know, as I close out this conversation with each of you, have we been a monolithic selector of our board? Surgeons and previous winners on exits in the MedTech industry. Should we, and will you, as a CEO in this current run that you're on, or the next one after each of you successfully exit, will you be looking for board members who have never stepped foot in MedTech before, but may be out of a tech play?
Absolutely. I mean, it's today, board members at a startup, many are made up of venture capital for the right reasons. They're leading rounds, and but even within venture capital, you get those that are financial partners and good ones, and they always are there for you when you need them financially. Others that, besides investing in you, give you some real operational chops because they have people that maybe have been in the game before, and those are people that I love to sit with on a regular basis and talk. But when you start talking outside of VC, you talk about those independents. And I think it's really important to have independent. I talk to my chair all the time about other independents and the importance of us sitting down with these tech companies and people from Silicon Valley in the tech world, that if we're going to go there, I want to get a heads up. So we do that a lot with our advisors right now. We have great tech advisors. We have a couple of board observers from the big tech companies. But yes, Joe, the answer is absolutely. I think it's critical. But I still actually think it's critical, even as a startup, to not limit your board to just venture capital. And I love them. They're so wonderful to me, and I'm very appreciative. So, but at the end of the day, I need someone that I can talk about globalization and commercial technology that's just been there in the game, and we can sit there and strategize, and that's a little different.
Matt, you?
Yeah, I mean, I fundamentally agree. And I think the part you've got to work out very quickly for your board is, what are the long-term threats to your business? What have you got to get right at an early stage that if you don't do it now, is actually going to get you in 2 years' time, and it's going to stunt you to a point? And you've got to figure those challenges out first. And then my view would be is have an expert around the table who has done that from another industry, so that it challenges your thinking. Because we can get very focused in medtech, and it's quite a simple playbook. And if you get stuck in that channel, you're not thinking outside, and you're not being challenged, and I think that's not good. So my view is you work out what is critical to the long-term strategic success of your organization. What do you have to get right at the start? It's never going to be a quick play, so you've got to build that over time and have those experts around the table who have done it from other industries and who will challenge you on it. And it comes back to the point, which is what we're all saying about investor base and board base, is they're your friends, they're your supporters. So bring them into those conversations, throw ideas around with them, because ultimately you want to deliver that company to the next level. So yeah, that's my take on it.
We've already done it. So, whether or not this is just by design or by complete accident, but our chair is from the bollard industry.
The what industry?
The bollard, rising bollards, so security. So you go to LAX, all the bollards outside there, his company installed those.
Really?
This guy's been churning bollards out of a warehouse in the north of England for 25, 30 years. And he was the mentor to myself and my co-founder, Jordan. He was mentoring us for 3 or 4 years, a couple of young lads. We found him at an event where he was speaking. We thought, that guy is someone we should get on board with, and we should tap him up for some information. And when we brought our first venture capital round in, the VCs very supportive of us, and they said, you're going to need someone with some grey hair around the table. We're not going to force anything on you. We'll run a process. We ran a process, and this guy came out as the number one. And he's been in offshore wind farms, bollards, security, and he brings all of this brilliant insight into how to scale manufacturing operations, export. He's a Department of International Trade export champion, but he's never ever been in medtech. And so we sort of almost skipped that step. So we're not going to wait until the next one. We're going to do it now. And so far, that's working out really well for us, because he just brings this completely contrarian thought process to all the other medtech guys in the room, but the right amount of experience that we need.
We've been thinking about doing a piece on conspicuous outsiders.
Yeah.
So the people who have not been in medtech, but have come into medtech and have moved the board forward. Is there anything we didn't talk about today that would be appropriate that we should close out with from each of you on your perspectives? If we think about these opening, partnering, permeable barriers as we develop product, and what should leadership think about in these open architecture environments? Anybody?
I think for me, it just comes down to just be brave. Don't be selfish about it. Be brave, be committed to what you're trying to do, but realize as well that actually maximize the efficiency of that dollar or the pound. Just maximize that value. How can you make that bigger and better by working together? And not every time, but I'm sure most times, a collaborative force is better than the singular one. And so for me, it's just be brave. Just because it's not been done before, doesn't matter. Work out a way that it makes sense, work out a way for it to work, and that will ultimately drive innovation, either innovation in the product or, more importantly, innovation in the business model. And then, just be brave about what you're doing.
Well, gents, thanks so much for your time today. Certainly generous. I know you're super busy, but again, let's do it same time next year.
Yeah, thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
I'm Joe Mullings from Houston, SDTS conference. Be well.